Welcome to Tour Tuesday, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We have almost 60 people today, 59 to be exact. And we've got three great tours to review with you tonight. I know you'll be excited to hear about them. We'll be talking about Atlanta Adventure, Hamptons and Long Island, New York. And last but not least, we'll be talking about the castles of New York. So I will personally be going to Atlanta, where my son has chosen to go to school, to college. So I'll be dropping him off in August. I'll be there before you guys get there, but I will be checking out some of the spots that you guys will be seeing. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get started because we have lots to talk about. And I know that's why you're here. So thank you for coming. We are going to start with welcoming our special guest. Her name is Holly Rogers, and Holly is with Brilliant Adventures. Brilliant Adventures is one of those wonderful what we call receptive tour operators that we work with. They're experts in putting together itineraries, maybe more so than we are in a specific area. So since we're not that familiar with Atlanta, we only offer that trip every few years or so. We asked Holly's team to put together an itinerary for you, and they did, and it's fabulous. So Holly is here to talk to you about the Atlanta itinerary. So welcome, Holly. Let me just...
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Let me just see if we can find you, and I'm going to highlight you. Where'd you go? Oh, there you are. Okay, I'm going to highlight you. So Holly, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So this is my, I think, 5th day of work with Brilliant Adventures. They were actually my client. I took a break from the travel industry like many people did during COVID. I used to work for a destination. I worked for St. Louis, which is where I'm kind of tuning in from today. So if you want to know anything about St. Louis, I've got you there. But I worked with them on planning trips to St. Louis, and then I took a little break during COVID. I taught art classes for a while. So if you hear me say students instead of travelers on accident, just forgive me. But I am joining Brilliant Adventures to go to the other side of travel planning now and planning trips all over the place and not just here in St. Louis. And I'll be joining them in Michigan this weekend. I'm moving there, so I'm really excited.
Oh, awesome. I didn't realize you were moving to Michigan. That's great. Terrific. Although you'll be leaving a good city behind for another good city. So
I agree.
All right. So Holly's going to be talking to us about the Atlanta Adventure. This trip departs on October 29th, returns November 4th. So it's a 7-day, 6-night trip. 9 meals are included. It's $18.99 per person based on 2 people in a room, and $22.49 based on a single room. So Holly, go ahead and take it away.
All right, so we'll get started. Day 1 is a travel day. We'll be headed to Greensboro, North Carolina. We'll have lunch on the way, and we'll check in just for 1 night here at the Drury Inn in Greensboro. You'll see a lot of Drury slides coming up in this presentation. Not to be biased, they are headquartered in St. Louis, but we love Drury. Their rooms are very consistent. Their staff is wonderful. Never have any problems with groups with Drury. They're so easy to work with. And they have that free hot breakfast every day. So you'll get to enjoy that for 7 days of your, or for six mornings of your trip. I mean, hot breakfast, like eggs, bacon, waffles, all that stuff. So you'll get to fill up every morning before we leave. So the Drury here in Greensboro, you'll have dinner on your own when we arrive. There are some things around. There's a Carrabba's, a Popeyes, Waffle House, that kind of thing. But Drury is also known for their evening kickback. So if you want to literally kick back at the hotel and not head out for dinner, you do get a few free alcoholic beverages if you choose in their lobby, and they set up like an evening snack buffet. I say snack because it's really more of a meal. You can make a whole meal out of it. Usually they have like a nacho bar or chicken strips, all kinds of stuff. So if you want to just stay in your hotel and enjoy the free food, you're welcome to do that. And then we'll head out for day 2. Day 2, you'll have that complimentary hot breakfast at the Drury. And then we'll check out and we will start our drive to Atlanta. We'll have lunch on the way, but our big activity for the day will be visiting Coca-Cola World. Coca-Cola World is kind of a museum meets Willy Wonka's factory. So you'll learn a lot of the history of Coca-Cola, but there's a lot of fun things to do there too, besides just learning. So there's a lot to see here at this museum. If you're interested in those vintage Coca-Cola ads, those commercials, maybe get a little nostalgia and get to see some of those ads you probably haven't seen in a pretty long time. They have a hall of the vintage Coca-Cola vending machines, just so iconic from, they're so historical, they're so American. There's quite a few exhibits to view there too. There's a tasting exhibit, scent discovery. They have a 3D theater. You'll get to take a picture with the Coca-Cola polar bear. That's always fun. They have a pop culture exhibit. So you can learn a little bit about how Coca-Cola has been included in so much media and just culture and art. Coca-Cola is just everywhere. It's always been everywhere. It's global. It's so recognized. It's just such a huge, huge brand. You'll get to learn a little bit about the vault. They have a vault that you get to walk into, that you can learn a little bit about their secret formula and the history of Coca-Cola. But the most exciting part, I think, of Coca-Cola World is their tasting room. That's where you kind of get that Willy Wonka feel. So they have a tasting room. It's about 300 soda fountains, and you can have as many cups as you want. And you get to taste all the different Coca-Cola products from all over the world. So, of course, we have Coca-Cola, Sprite, Fanta, that kind of stuff here. But other countries have all kinds of other drinks that we don't get to try unless you go to Coca-Cola World. There's like an apple pear soda from Germany. There's plum Fanta from China. There's drinks from Italy and Tanzania. There's an apple kiwi Fanta from Thailand. So you'll get to sip to your heart's content there in the tasting room, and then head to the gift shop where you can buy all of the Coca-Cola merchandise you could probably imagine. And then we'll head back. We'll stay overnight at another brewery, the one in Marietta, Georgia. And you'll be here for 4 nights. So you can really get comfy, make it home, unpack a little bit. And this night, we're going to be having dinner included at Mary Mac's Tea Room. Mary Mac's Tea Room is kind of called Atlanta's dining room. They make a lot of scratch-made Southern style food. They've been there for 75 years. So think, homemade bread and dessert, banana pudding, peach cobbler, sweet tea, tomato pie, fried green tomatoes, all of that delicious Southern food. And then you'll head back to your hotel and probably sleep very, very well that night. All right, day 3. Day 3, you'll have that complimentary hot breakfast included at the brewery. And you'll start your morning with a guided sightseeing tour of Atlanta. So you'll see a few of the bigger neighborhoods like downtown. You'll get to learn a little bit about, Centennial Olympic Park, the College Football Hall of Fame, Georgia Aquarium, which we will be visiting later, the Center for Civil and Human Rights, Atlanta Underground. That's kind of more of an artsy, up-and-coming neighborhood. Lots of murals, lots of colors and artists and little food stalls and things like that. Midtown, also kind of artsy. That's where the High Museum of Art is located. Peachtree Street, which has comedy and bars and shops. You'll cruise by the Margaret Mitchell House. You'll head over to Buckhead, which is kind of a stylish upscale shopping area. A lot of art galleries and bars there too. So on this tour, you'll really get to see a lot of why Atlanta is so bustling and so exciting. It's growing so much in popularity. It's such a fun place to go. And then you're going to head out for lunch on your own at the Varsity. The Varsity is known as the world's largest drive-in restaurant. The bus will not be driving in. You will get to walk inside. But they're family owned and operated since 1928. And as you could probably assume from the name, the food is like burgers and fries and hot dogs and milkshakes and that kind of thing. So that'll be a fun stop for lunch. Then we will continue on. We're going to visit the Sweet Auburn District. So that's where you'll get a lot of that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. history there. You'll go to the historic site. You'll have a local guide there. You'll see his birthplace. You'll see the Baptist church where 3 generations of the King family preached. And you'll see the burial site of Dr. King and his wife, Coretta. And then you'll head over to the Jimmy Carter Museum. It was restored in 2009. So you'll have a look at his presidency, as well as a little bit more about the American political system, which I'm sure we all think about constantly. They have an Oval Office replica, which is the perfect place. You have to get that presidential photo sitting in the chair at the Oval Office desk. And then you will have a virtual trip with the Carters, learn a little bit more about what they were doing during his presidency to fight disease, promote democracy, and defend human rights. And then you'll return to the hotel. So you'll return back to your Drury. You're welcome to have dinner around the hotel, or if you want to take advantage of that free kickback, that's a good night to be doing that. Day 4. Day 4, you'll have your complimentary hot breakfast at the Drury. And then you'll visit the performance. You'll have a performance at the Center for Puppetry Arts. So we're kind of taking a little turn here, and we're going from soda to history to puppets. So this museum here, very, very fun, very bright, very colorful. They are the world's largest collection of Jim Henson artifacts, which is always very popular. So you'll get to see Kermit, Miss Piggy, and Big Bird. Those puppets go through a lot of handling, so they do get retired occasionally. So you'll see some of those retired puppets there. And then also you'll learn a little bit about puppets around the world, like Vietnamese water puppets. The Native Americans used a lot of puppets in their storytelling. They have a few puppets from the movie Labyrinth, if you're interested in those. They have about 6,000 artifacts in their collection at this museum. The puppets are they're pretty delicate since they're kind of old and fragile. So the museum itself is pretty low light, but pretty much every exhibit has an accompanying video, so you can see all these puppets in action. And then you will get your own puppet show as well. You can't leave the museum without a puppet show. So then we will have lunch on our own at Ponce City Market. This market, it's actually a converted Sears building, but it's a Sears building turned food hall, shopping, activities, that kind of thing. So you'll have a lot of variety there for lunch. All right, day 4. So in the afternoon, we are going to visit the Georgia Aquarium. This is a huge, huge aquarium, 10 million gallons of water at this aquarium. So this is the type of aquarium where you get to see that really big stuff. They have beluga whales, whale sharks, manta rays, penguins, sea otters, dolphins. So there's a lot to see at this aquarium. And you'll learn a little bit too about the aquatic ecosystems around the world, but I know I would be excited to see whales. You don't get to see a whale in an aquarium very often these days. All right. And then you'll have dinner at a local restaurant that day as well, to be determined. Day 5, you'll have your complimentary hot breakfast at the Drury. And then we're going to start the day with a guided city tour, and we're going to kind of get into our Gone with the Wind history here. We are hoping to stop at the Margaret Mitchell House. They have not reopened yet from COVID as of today. There will be more Gone with the Wind history on this tour. Not sure we'll get to stop at the house, but hopefully, fingers crossed. Otherwise, we'll put something else here. And we're also going to visit the Atlanta History Center. So this center, it's not just a history museum, it's actually a 33-acre center, and it has so much more than just a museum on it. They have historic houses and gardens, paths to walk on. There's so much to see here. So they have an old farmhouse, they have a playhouse, an old tea room. There's like a jazz age house, like a type of jazz house you would entertain in. There's an old wood cabin. You can learn a little bit about beekeeping and soil farming from that era. So all of these buildings kind of, they tell you American history, but through the lens of life in Atlanta specifically. And if you want to take maybe a little history detour, they also have plenty of gardens to explore. If maybe you're a little bit more into horticulture, they have an Asian garden, an ornamental garden, a perennial garden, a rhododendron garden, and they have a garden library and a research center too. So if you're really, really into plants, you can kind of take that pivot on your own as well. And then we will have lunch on our own that day, also to be determined. And then later on, we will travel to Jonesboro, Georgia. And we will tour the Jonesboro and Road to Tara Museum. So this is where you'll get a little bit more of that Gone with the Wind kind of history. You'll see more of those props and costumes, manuscripts. You have to see that when you're in Atlanta, of course. You'll learn a little bit more about Jonesboro and how it tied into the Civil War as well. And no trip to the South is complete without plantation tour. We'll be going to the Stately Oaks Plantation, and you'll have a costumed guide. There's no better guide to have than one in a costume. And you'll have dinner on site here as well. So you can tour the grounds. They have the main house, of course. They have a country store. They have a one-room schoolhouse. There's a cookhouse. And this night, you'll actually be having dinner in the one-room schoolhouse, and you'll have a storyteller present during your dinner as well. And then we will go back to our hotel. Day 6, we'll be having our complimentary hot breakfast at the Drury. And then we'll check out. We'll head over to Charlotte, North Carolina. So a little bit of a travel day, and then you'll have lunch on your own at Optimist Food Hall. And Optimist Food Hall, that was a textile factory from 1892. So they have more dining, more shopping, a nice place to just walk around, enjoy the day. A lot of varieties of food there, a lot of local vendors as well. And then we will wrap up that day with a tour of the Carolina Raptor Center. So you'll get to see all of those birds of prey, like hawks, falcons, eagles, kites, vultures. So this Raptor Center, they are dedicated to the conservation of these types of birds. They're located in a plantation nature reserve. It's a 57-acre facility. So there's a little 3/4 mile trail that you're welcome to walk while you're there if you choose. But we will also have a special activity for the group that day as well. All right, and then we're going to head to Greensboro, North Carolina. We're going to check back into that Drury from the beginning, and you'll have dinner on your own there at those restaurants I mentioned that are nearby, or you can enjoy that free Drury kickback, of course. And then day 7, we're going to have one more complimentary hot breakfast at the Drury. And then we're going to head home. So we'll have lunch on the way back, and we'll have a few other stops as well, just for breaks. But that is a great way to wrap up your trip. So there's a lot to see in this trip to Atlanta, a lot of variety. We've got Coca-Cola, we've got birds of prey, we've got presidents, puppets, we've got horticulture, Gone with the Wind, whales. I mean, what more could you want, really?
I mean, not only that, like what was like hitting me is that there's so many things that you couldn't get if you just drove to Atlanta or flew to Atlanta. There's so many special things here that you guys have arranged for us. A puppet show, for example. You know, who would know to visit the Center for Puppetry Arts, and all these cool places to eat, and, dinner in the one-room schoolhouse. That's probably something that they don't have open to the public. So, and local guides guiding you through Atlanta on two separate guided tours. So there's a lot in here. And I love that it's 4 nights, in one hotel. You really, and of course, in a Drury, right? So where every night they give you complimentary drinks and food, and every morning a lovely hot breakfast. So this tour definitely has it all. Thank you, Holly. You did a great job, like a pro, like an absolute pro. Well, Holly's still here. Does anybody have any questions about this trip? You could just unmute yourself and ask the question. You can raise your hand if you want, or you could just start talking.
What is the bus like on that trip? Because Atlanta from our area is a very long trip.
It is a very long trip. You're right.
The bus and all the extra features. What is the bus? Can you describe it?
Well, it's our regular motor coach. You know, we have late model motor coaches. This one will be expanded for a little bit of extra leg room. We'll have 52 seats in the bus instead of 56 seats in the bus. But just like on every Star Tour, we stop every 2 to 3 hours for you to stretch your legs, get off the bus, get a snack, use the restroom, and then you'll come back on the bus. So for when you have a full day of travel, like we do on the first day and the last day, you can expect to stop mid-morning at lunch, and then mid-afternoon, and then you'll get to your hotel late afternoon before you to check in. So all of the buses have Wi-Fi, of course, and it's free. Of course, when you're driving through places kind of, that are very rural, the Wi-Fi can be spotty, but for the most part, you have Wi-Fi available to you. You have footrests and you have individual lighting at the seats. You do have outlets to plug in your phone or your iPad or your computer, what have you, your tablet. And then you'll have a tour director on board to make sure that you're comfortable, to make sure that they're providing you some commentary and information regarding the trip. Does that answer your question?
Not fully. On a number of the trips that we've taken, there's no place to store something that you need, like a little pocket on the seat in front of you that's facing you, or a little table. I've heard that some of the newer buses have a pull-down table.
Not on the newer, no, we don't do the tables on the newer buses. We do have a couple of buses that have tables. And you'll have a cup holder. Sometimes you'll have a netting and sometimes you won't. So, but you do have some space overhead. So if you want to put a tote bag or a small backpack overhead, you can do that. We have lots of different buses, so I don't know which one is going to be on this trip. So I can't comment about if it will have a net or anything on the seat behind you. It will have a cup holder, and it may or may not have a tray table. Likely not, because we just have a small few buses that have a tray table. Mm-hmm. I see somebody else. Marilyn, you're raising your hand?
Yeah, I'm a school teacher. Retired. But question, my husband has he doesn't do a lot of walking, so I noticed like on one of the things, it's like a one of my favorite is Gone with the Wind, the whole day type of thing. And could he, if he elects not to come because it's too much walking, well, can he do that, or he has to come to all of the to the event?
He doesn't. So if he comes on this trip, we want him to participate because we think he'll enjoy it and he'll have fun. When the driver stops the bus and people get out, it's likely that everyone has to get out of the bus at that time. Right. Because the driver needs to go off duty and maybe, so if your husband doesn't want to participate in some of the walking of a tour, we will find a bench for him, or we will find someplace for him to sit. Kathy, do you want to comment on this? As far as Kathy's one of our tour directors, and she can talk a little bit about what happens in cases like this.
Well, yeah, because my question is if he prefers to stay in the room or stay in a hotel.
Yes, he can do that. We do really try to encourage it, but I have been on trips where people just say, it's depending on where it is, what time of the year it is, how hot it is, the heat can really get to you. With the luxury of being at the Drury, first of all, it's a beautiful hotel.
Right,
and
I would think.
Of all, you're going to be there. So he would have to make that decision on an individual day. He could stay behind, and we have had people do that.
Okay, I just want to, I know he's going to ask me that question. So I'm like, let me get it out, because he may say, that's just too much walking all day. That's your thing.
But remember, this is mostly driving. These sightseeing tours are mostly riding. So you can talk to the guide in the morning and ask them how much walking is involved on the trip. It is predominantly riding. We wouldn't do a lot of walking unless we specifically say so. So when you book your trip, you can say how much walking is involved. Now, we can't give you obviously the exact number or amount of walking, but we can say, hey, this trip does have a lot of walking, or hey, this is a good trip for those that don't like to walk a lot. What I will say, it's a 7-day trip. So
yeah, I got you.
7 days is, think about you're up, off and on the bus in 3 different, 2 different hotels, 3 different check-ins for this trip.
Got you. Thank you.
Right. No problem. These are great questions. Any other questions? I see Ellen raising your hand.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to find out about the Coca-Cola. Is that a docent-led tour, or are people kind of free land, walking around on their own?
That one you're going to be on your own. There's so many different exhibits to see. You could be there all day. We only have the afternoon there, so you'll get to kind of pick and choose which ones appeal to you. But I'm sure everyone will find themselves in the tasting room at some point together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, Holly. I really appreciate it. Yeah. A round of applause for Holly on her 5th day. She's a seasoned professional, as you can tell. She was fully prepared for this. She knew that, this was not a surprise, and she is familiar with our trip. So thank you so much, Holly. And we'll hopefully see you again sometime when you plan another one of our trips.
I hope so.
All right. We are moving right on. I would like to introduce you to Mr. Bruce Michael. He will be talking about our Hamptons and Long Island tour. So
Sandy, can I ask a question before we move on?
Sure.
I'm going on the mystery tour, but I have no idea where the bus is going to pick us up. The end of the month. The end of the month.
Okay, we mailed those the paperwork, I believe, on Friday, so you should be getting that any day.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so going back to Mr. Bruce Michael, Bruce is what we call an expert on the Hamptons and Long Island. He has been a resource for us with his infinite wisdom and experience in the Hamptons. So we've asked him to help us plan this trip, and he has done an amazing job in doing so. And not only did he help us plan it, but you will meet him in person. He will be our guide when we take this trip. So I would like to introduce you to Mr. Bruce Michael. Hello, Bruce.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to meet all of you.
Would you like to tell us 1 or 2 things about yourself, maybe that I haven't said?
Sure, absolutely. I divide my time between New York City and the Hamptons. And for many, many years, I worked a very full-time job at Radio City Music Hall as the creative producer of the Radio City Rockettes. I was there about 18 years, and it was quite something. I bought my first home. Well, actually, I first came out to the Hamptons in 1974 for a visit. And I was so impressed with the area that I rented the house I visited the next year in 1975 in Sag Harbor, a beautiful community that will be a part of this tour. And all through those years, I worked very hard in New York. I went back and forth. I spent 1 full day here on a Saturday, and then on a Sunday, it was time to go back to the city. But now I'm very grateful that I spend the majority of my time here. And what I really love to do is show this beautiful area of Long Island, the Hamptons, which is quite a wonderful place. I have loved living here. And I'm here almost 95% of the time, although I still retain my apartment in the city. I have 2 beautiful dogs. You saw it in the picture. Here's one of them on my lap. This is La-di-da. Who, because she hasn't eaten dinner yet, I'm keeping her on my lap just to be nice and quiet until after this is over. My other one, Baby Grand, is napping. So you have quite a tour that's set up for you. Outside of what I'll be giving you on our first day, we're going to be experiencing the North Fork first, and then the South Fork of the Hamptons. Do you could just nod your heads. You know what I mean by forks? They're peninsulas at the very end of Long Island. If you look at a map of Long Island, it stretches out to two land masses, the North Fork and the South Fork, separated by the bays, Peconic Bay in the center. On the south side of the South Fork is the Atlantic Ocean and our beautiful beaches. And on the north side of the North Fork is Long Island Sound. On the other side of Long Island Sound is Connecticut. So it's quite an extraordinary area. And what's been arranged for you is that on your way out to the Hamptons, you're going to have a stop on, are you going to be pulling up the slides?
Yeah, I'm going to, yeah. Hold on one second. Actually, let's, I'm going to start you over for a second.
Okay.
But all right, so you've met Bruce. You've seen one of his dogs, the awake one that's hungry. I'm going to tell you just big picture, and then I'm going to let Bruce dive right in. Okay. This is the Hamptons and Long Island trip. It is the first week in October, October 1st through 4th. Well-timed, not too cold, not too warm, should have some nice foliage on the way. There's 6 meals included and $1,049 for 2 people in a room and $1,329 for 1 person in a room, single occupancy. So now I will let you take it away.
Okay, so you'll be traveling the length of Long Island. Long Island is 111 miles long from Manhattan out to Montauk Point. And within Long Island are some extraordinary properties before you get to the Hamptons. That's all part of what we call the Gold Coast, the Great Gatsby country, the area that was settled by very wealthy industrialists at the turn of the last century, when over 500 extraordinary mansions were built all along the North Shore of Long Island. And you're going to be experiencing one of those incredibly restored homes called Coe Hall. Coe Hall is part of an amazing complex called Planting Fields, which is a garden that's almost 450 acres. So with the houses that have been preserved on Long Island, the actual acreage that surrounded these homes is still there, and you're going to have a chance to experience it. Coe Hall was created by the heiress May Huddleston, who inherited the Standard Oil fortune from her father, and William Robertson Coe was her husband, and together they created this house that has over 65 rooms in it. And I have to say, it's absolutely breathtaking. Not only the house itself, but planting fields, the arboretum that surrounds it with almost every kind of plant you can imagine. So it'll be an extraordinary introduction to what Long Island's amazing Gilded Age history is all about. These people that had these homes on the Gold Coast also had beautiful mansions on Fifth Avenue, other mansions in Newport. These were extremely wealthy people that built these extraordinary monuments and basically established Long Island as a resort area very early on at the turn of the last century. It was well after the war, World War II, that Long Island became more suburbanized as it goes closer to New York City. And some of these mansions subdivided their properties, but Coe Hall did not. It's absolutely intact. So that'll be a beautiful introduction for you as you enter Long Island. And then from there, you're going to travel to Riverhead. Now, Riverhead, if you look at a map of Long Island, sorry, I don't have one with me right here. Riverhead is located right at the center of the North Fork and the South Fork. It's in a perfect location. And you're staying at a lovely hotel called the Hyatt Place, which has, there's the marina that's behind the Hyatt Place. That's the river, the Peconic River, that empties out into the Peconic Bay. The town of Riverhead is at the head of the river. And right behind your hotel is a beautiful river walk that I'm sure you'll have time to experience. Riverhead has beautiful restaurants, an aquarium that's right next door. All the rooms are beautifully appointed. The breakfast is delicious. In fact, on the first day, I'll be meeting you at the Hyatt Place because I like to get there a half an hour before the tour starts to eat that delicious breakfast with all of you. So you'll be meeting me before the tour even starts. And then from there, what we're going to do is travel from the North Fork Okay. Oh, dinner on your first day is included at a restaurant literally steps away from the entrance to the hotel. It's one of the most popular restaurants in Riverhead called Jerry and the Mermaid. And it's right on the river next to the hotel. So once you get to the hotel, you don't have to travel any other place. You'll have this beautiful dinner. This restaurant has been in existence for many years. It's passed on to the second generation of Jerry's. The initial Jerry who created it still is with us, and his sons now run it. And the food is absolutely wonderful. And I can see your choice of food here looks delicious. You'll be experiencing that on your first night. Then on day 2, I'll be there for that delicious breakfast with all of you. And then we begin the sightseeing tour of the South Fork, beginning in Riverhead. Actually, we're going to do the North Fork that day, but we go to the South Fork first. Hope I'm not confusing you with all this fork idea, but when you get to Long Island, it'll all become very, very clear to you. So we're going to start in Riverhead. We're going to go to where the entire Southampton colony was created. It's a beautiful place that very few people see when they come to the Hamptons. It's called Conscience Point. And Conscience Point is where the founding families of the colony of Southampton, the oldest English settlement in New York State, first came to colonize the east end of Long Island. The Dutch had already settled the west end, but the English were the first to settle the east end. And I'm going to show you the exact spot where all of that happened. And it's a beautiful walk down a path that is gorgeous in between all of our bay estuaries, wetlands, and it's majestic. And it's the kind of thing that people don't expect to find when they think of the Hamptons. What's wonderful about this tour, and what I try to do, is give you a view of the Hamptons. By the time you experience this whole tour, your vision of what the Hamptons are will probably change a bit, in that it's a very diverse area. Besides our extraordinary homes that are along the beaches and our beautiful communities that have multi-million dollar homes, we have also very modest neighborhoods and areas like Conscience Point, where the whole area was developed. And any of my friends who've lived here for years don't even know about it. I've been taking them there to show them a sense of our history, but you'll have the opportunity to see that for yourself. Then after we do that, I'm going to take us through the hills of North Sea and Noyak. This is on the north side of the South Fork within the town of Southampton, which is a very extensive town. And from there, we're going to go to Sag Harbor. Sag Harbor is the heartbeat of the Hamptons. It's a magnificent community. Billy Joel lives there. John Steinbeck lived there, wrote the book Travels with Charlie. That was where he began his journey across the country. Betty Friedan, the famous feminist, was there in the 70s. Elaine Stritch, the Broadway star, had a home there. It's a very storied community of literary and artistic figures. And you'll get the whole history from me before we even enter Sag Harbor. Then you'll see beautiful Sag Harbor Beach as we go into its gorgeous downtown area. And we'll go straight to the Whaling Museum. That photograph that's on the upper right, that columned house, that's the former Benjamin Hunting Mansion, which has now become the Whaling Museum. I'll be telling you a lot about whaling en route to the museum, but when you get there, our docent is dedicated to an extraordinary history of whaling within Sag Harbor. But Sag Harbor's history goes beyond whaling, and I'll be telling you all about that as well. After we also visit, just remind me, are we on the Whalers Church for this tour?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. We are on the Whalers Church. So if you look at that, that church was built at the height of whaling prosperity in the middle 19th century. You'll be told when we go to that church, which was built by, or the architect was Menard Lefebvre, and he did this in a somewhat of an Egyptian style on the outside, very unusual for architecture within Sag Harbor during that period. But the townspeople of Sag Harbor and the captains of whaling wanted to build a monument to their amazing prosperity during this era. They had just come out of the Revolutionary War, which compromised the industry. They came out of the War of 1812, which also compromised the industry. And after the War of 1812, Sag Harbor flourished as an extraordinary, very wealthy town. So this church, before the hurricane of 1938 came in, used to have a steeple on the top that was 80 feet high. You're going to hear all about that. But the hurricane literally lifted the steeple off and threw it into the adjacent graveyard. That's part of the information that you'll get. You'll go inside the church. You'll see this beautiful structure, as you can see on the lower right-hand side. And there'll be a special docent within that church that'll give us that history. After we leave the Whaling Museum and the Whalers Church, we're then going to go into downtown Sag Harbor, where I will have the pleasure of pointing out to you an array of restaurants that are amazing. From reasonable, inexpensive restaurants like the Corner Bar right at the head of Main Street, which features lobster roll and delicious hamburgers and all other kinds of delicacies, to the fabulous American Hotel, one of the most historic buildings on Long Island. This hotel was built in the mid-19th century, and their lunches are extraordinary. We also have Sag Pizza. We have Page at 63, another wonderful restaurant called Lulu's. It's a foodie's paradise, Sag Harbor. And if you enjoy various cuisines, you're going to love having lunch in Sag Harbor. And I'll be sure to point out all the possibilities to you right after I show you where Billy Joel lives. Sag Harbor is a very small town. It's only 2 square miles. And from the village, I'm going to give you an hour and a half there. So you're going to have plenty of time to not only have a delicious lunch, but to explore the village, go shopping, visit our 1923 variety store, which is there. Walk by Billy Joel's house, see if he's out there working on his motorcycles. He is often present. I can't promise that, but he lives in Sag Harbor almost 90% of his time. And you'll see the gorgeous Long Wharf. Now, the Long Wharf is where hundreds of square rig vessels used to leave to ply the oceans of the world in search of whales. But now it's the home of a myriad of yachts. Yachts come from all over the country to dock there during the summer. And within October, many of them should still be there. You'll get a chance to walk down the Long Wharf, which has a boardwalk on it. Sag Harbor is the boardwalk of the Hamptons, because when I show you the beaches in Southampton the following day, you're going to notice we don't have boardwalks along the beach. But what we do have are magnificent homes. You'll be seeing that the second day. But before I get to that, or the second day within the east end of Long Island, and this will be your third day on the trip. So after we leave Sag Harbor, the adventure continues as we take the entire bus on a ferry, on a flatbed ferry, and we go across the bay from Sag Harbor to Shelter Island, an island that's called Shelter Island because it's sheltered between the North and South Fork. And I will give you a whole history of Shelter Island when we're on the bus. I'm going to show you Shelter Island Heights, which is a beautiful historic area with the lovely beach called Crescent Beach. We'll pass by the Yitzhak Perlman Music Camp. He's one of the famous residents of Shelter Island, and he has a music camp where he teaches young violin prodigies throughout the summer. We'll pass by the Pridwin Hotel. It's absolutely magical. Then we're going to get on the North Ferry. We're going to get on a ferry again and go from Shelter Island over to the beautiful town of Greenport. Greenport, like Sag Harbor, has a huge history of whaling, shipbuilding. They used to have fish factories, but now it's an amazing resort. And within this resort are lovely restaurants, a rest stop that we'll make prior to going to your next stop, which will be a winery. And that looks like Raphael, the Raphael Winery, which is one of the most beautiful wineries in the North Fork. A little bit about the history of North Fork wineries. It was in 1972 when Louisa Hargrave and her family decided they wanted to plant grapes and create wine. And all their friends thought they were crazy. They went ahead and did it anyway. They invested quite a bit of money, and their first season of winemaking was a success. So a lot of other vintners came along and created wineries. So what used to be lots of potato fields and cornfields on the North Fork is now the home of 48 wineries, which is amazing. And you're going to have an opportunity to taste one of the most delicious of those wines at the Raphael Winery.
Actually, we're tasting 4 of them.
Oh, you're tasting 4 of their wines.
Yeah.
And I always envy everybody that does that, because I don't drink while I'm giving tours because I want to give you information. I want to remember everything I have to tell you. So I'll be there, wishing I could join you, but I will enjoy you enjoying all of that, because it is wonderful. And then from there, I'm going to take you through the balance of the North Fork, where I'm going to show you all the other communities from Kutchog, where the first winery was actually created. and it's now called the Castillo de Borghese. And we'll continue on through Mattatuck and all the other charming communities before we head back to the Hyatt Place for a very full day. The next day, the bus is going to, I will not meet you at the hotel, but I'll be meeting you in the village of Southampton. The village of Southampton, once again, founded in 1640 by the founding families. You're going to see that founding spot the day before. I'll recap some of that history. I'll meet you in Southampton Village and take you straight through the beautiful village commercial area of Southampton, which is considered the jewel in the crown of all the Hamptons villages. And I'll be pointing out places within the town that you might be interested in visiting when we come back to it, because at that point, when I meet you, it'll be about 9 o'clock in the morning. The stores won't be open yet, but I'll be showing you things that you might want to see later on when everything opens at 10 o'clock. What we will do, however, is go into South Main Street, into the beautiful neighborhoods of Southampton Village. First, I'll be showing you a lot of the historic homes, and then I'll be describing to you the second set of settlers that came to Southampton. First were the colonists. They were there for hundreds of years. It was a farming community. But in 1870, a gentleman named Thomas D.R. Thomas came out to the Hamptons by horse and carriage just to check it out. And he decided if he liked what he saw, he would build a home right on the beach in the Hamptons, which became the beginning of our summer colony in 1870. So in 1870, we had a second set of settlers, the summer people. And it's the summer people that have kind of changed the face of Southampton Village from an agricultural community into more of a resort community. From there, I will show you that first property that he built called Woolden Manor. We're going to go straight around Agawam Lake, where there are a number of historic homes, including Old Trees, the Dolphins, Micamato, magnificent homes. And I'll be pausing the bus there and pointing out those homes to you, the Southampton Bathing Corporation, the great beach club of the very rich and famous. And then we're going to take you straight to what has been voted for many years America's #1 beach, right here on Long Island. That's called Cooper's Beach. Now, this year, I have to admit, we've been voted #3, but we're very happy to be in the top 10. And we're always neck and neck with Siesta Key and Sarasota and some California and Hawaiian beaches. But Cooper's Beach is magnificent. And I can just tell you that when we stop there and I give people, about 20 minutes just to enjoy the beach, to get off the bus, to take a walk, people are enchanted by it. It's magnificent. And after we leave Cooper's Beach, we're going to get back on the bus and I'm going to take you for a ride down Billionaires Row, which I used to call Millionaires Row. That's changed. It's Billionaires Row now. And you're going to see the homes of a lot of amazing people. It turns out in Southampton, we have a lot of new hedge fund billionaires that come in and they buy properties for $50 million. And I'm not making this up. You'll see in the windows of our real estate offices in Southampton what some of these properties are going for. So they buy homes like this, tear them down and build brand new homes on the sites because there's been all sorts of new restrictions. How homes have to be lifted. There has to be pilings, so they figure rather than renovate or restore an older home, they'll just build a new one. It's wild. And it's so much fun to look at all of this and to go down Billionaires Row, which is also known as Meadow Lane, and to see all of this. At some point, we have to turn around on Meadow Lane and come back. And that's when we go back to Southampton Village. And that's when I give you quality time, like about an hour, to get off the bus and to enjoy the village, to enjoy a cup of coffee at any one of our wonderful locations, from the Golden Pear to our beautiful grocery store, Cinderella, to our first department store in America, which was created in Southampton. It's called Hildreth's. The Hildreths were one of the founding families of Southampton. And for years, they sold mostly farming product that people involved with farming could use. But then they started bringing in a lot of other product as well. It's considered the first department store in America. And the building that you'll be able to experience was built in 1842. So it's one of the many historic sites within Southampton Village, and people are enchanted by it. After that, we get back on the bus and I take you for a very complete tour through all the Hamptons. We'll leave Southampton Village. We'll go into Bridgehampton. I'm going to take you through the back roads of Bridgehampton, where you're going to see one of the largest homes ever built out here by a gentleman named Ira Renner in 1998. We're going to keep on going parallel to the ocean. We're going to get back on Montauk Highway for a little bit. Then I'll take you into the Georgia Estates. This is something that I do only in the fall after the season is ended, and you'll be part of a fortunate group to be able to go into Georgia to see where Russell Simmons has a home, where Steven Spielberg has a home, where Martha Stewart had a home. She just sold it. Candice Bergen was her neighbor. I'll show you where her home was. But John Bon Jovi is still there. We're going to pass his home as well. And then we're going to continue through the historic district of East Hampton and go through the magnificent Maidstone Club, which is one of the most dazzling sights on this tour. That's a golf club that was created in the late 19th century. It's one of the most beautiful sites in the Hamptons. We'll go past Jerry Seinfeld's compound and continue into Amagansett, where stars like Sarah Jessica Parker and Matthew Broderick have a home, and Scarlett Johansson and a number of other stars. And then from there, we're going to go right out to the end of Long Island, and they call it the end, and that's Montauk. And that's a beautiful community where you'll have time just to walk the community, enjoy any number of excellent restaurants they have. I usually recommend restaurants like the Shag Wong, the Point. Shag Wong has such an enormous lobster roll, you can share it with two people. And I keep mentioning lobster roll because that's such a requested dish when you come up to this area. And I have to say that Shag Wong does a fabulous job. After you've had lunch in Montauk, we're off to the great site of the Montauk Lighthouse, which has been thoroughly restored. It's completely magnificent. And it's a wonderful site. And you'll have about an hour to enjoy the lighthouse, to go to the top of it if you wish. There's about 137 steps to the top of the lighthouse. You're welcome to climb it if you want. Even if you don't climb it, from the base of the lighthouse, the most breathtaking views, because it's there that the Atlantic Ocean meets Block Island Sound, and you're right at the point of Long Island, and it's a sight you'll never forget. From there, we're going to continue back towards the Hamptons, and this time I'm going to take you through Hamptons horse country, the middle of the South Fork, where we used to have many, many potato farms and cornfields, et cetera. We still have a lot of that. Believe me, we have a lot of vegetable farms. But many people that show horses at the Hamptons Classic have chosen to adopt some of these farms and turn them into horse farms. So rather than going back on Montauk Highway, the main route through the Hamptons, we're going to go the back roads. I'll be taking you on a lot of back roads, a lot of roads that I take when I want to avoid the main highway itself. And so by the end of this tour, you will have seen the whole of the North Fork and the absolute whole of the South Fork, because I'm going to show you every bit of it, from the north side of it to the middle of it to the magnificent homes that line the south side. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. There's the Montauk Lighthouse, and there's a view of a lot of our beaches, and there's a magnificent aerial view of the Hamptons. That's a great view of the Hamptons and our beaches, which are, I have to tell you, I just came back from the beach. I spent the afternoon there today, and I go to the beach, there's like 3 other people on the beach, even in the height of the season. So it's an amazing experience, and it's why I've loved it so much. And it's why I like to share my passion for this area with people that take our tours and come up to the Hamptons to see what it's all about. You might have heard a lot about the Hamptons through Ina Garten, the Barefoot Contessa, who has a home on the Food Network. We're going to pass our house too. So on our final, questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Well, on our final night, you won't be joining us, I don't think, Bruce, because we'll have worn you out for 2 days. We are going to do a private dinner buffet at the Long Island Aquarium. It's obviously an aquarium, which is a big deal. And this is a private dinner, and the aquarium's only open for us. And we did this. You can see these are star guests. This is not a stock photo. You may recognize yourself in that photo. And it's a wonderful buffet dinner set right up in the shark tunnel. And you're surrounded by these glass tanks and this beautiful aquarium. So it's a wonderful end to a fabulous 4-day vacation. And of course, not over yet, because on our 4th day, we travel home, and on our way home, we stop at Vanderbilt Mansion. And
go ahead.
You tell us about Vanderbilt.
Well, it's another Gilded Age mansion. It was built by the great grandson of Cornelius Vanderbilt, who was a car enthusiast. So within this mansion is a vintage car museum. There's also a planetarium outside. I don't know that you'll be seeing the planetarium, but you'll be given a very complete tour of the house itself, which is also called the Eagle's Nest. It's in Centerport, Long Island. It's part of the Gold Coast. It'll give you another view of what Long Island's all about. Has gorgeous views of Long Island Sound. it's the perfect choice for exiting Long Island. So you'll be seeing 2 Gold Coast homes, planting fields to begin with, Coe Hall, and the Vanderbilt Mansion on your way out. And in the middle, you're going to get a very complete tour of the east end of Long Island that will be everything I described to you. So it's going to be a beautiful experience.
Sounds awesome. It sounds awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Bruce. While Bruce is still here, does anybody have any questions? You did a super thorough job. Thank you so much. If that didn't convince people to go on this trip, I don't know what will. All right. Very good. Thank you very much, Bruce. You're welcome to pop off or stay on either way. We are going to move on to our Castles of New York trip. I would like to introduce our tour director. There she is, Kathy Gillespie. Let me spotlight you. Kathy is now what we call an expert on this trip, and she is going to be escorting you on this trip. So this is a wonderful 4-day, 3-night trip. It includes 6 meals. It is the Castles of New York, which is, well, I'm not going to tell you, you will hear all about it. $1,039 per person based on 2 people in a room, and $1,299 based on 1 person in a room or single occupancy. And did we save the best for last, Kathy, or did we save the best for last?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Well, I will let you take it away because I know you're excited to share this information with us.
All right. Do you have the slides with the itinerary piece too?
Let's see. Yeah, this is the start of the itinerary, right?
Right. Day 1. So we're traveling to upstate New York, and we are going to go way upstate. But the first day, we're traveling to Millbrook, New York. Millbrook is about 75 miles north of Manhattan, past the Catskills, not quite at the foot of the Adirondacks. So when we hit the town of Millbrook, we're going to be there in time for lunch. And it has another little village. We heard about several of them on Long Island. And Millbrook also has a charming little village where we have different places where we can stop and have our lunch on our own. And the very first castle comes up. And the castle, the first day, is Wings Castle. And it is truly, truly a fairy tale castle. So picture this. Peter Wings was a farming family in New York. They had quite a lot of acreage. And he decided to propose to Tony, his prospective wife, on the farm. And when he proposed to her, he promised he would build her a castle. So following their wedding in 1970, that's exactly what he did. Now, Peter is an artist. Tony is a physical therapist. It took a long, long time to build this. He didn't have a lot of help. He had some help, but they physically built it themselves. So you can see from the slides there, it's very whimsical. It's very charming. And they ran out of money. They got tight. What he did was sold a lot of the land to the next door people. And it became the Millbrook Winery. They took the bulk of the land, and he had enough money to finish completing that first castle. So we will tour the castle. At the end, I think it was finished in about 2012. The last edition included 4 very distinct bedrooms. It became a B&B. And one room is a dungeon, one room is the tower room, and you can still go there and stay if you'd like. But we are doing a tour, a guided tour with Tony. There is one sad part to this story, is just 2 years after everything was finished, Peter was killed in a car accident. So the property is still in his family. He had a son, and she has a niece as well. So we will go there for the guided tour. And then from there, we will go next door to the winery and have an afternoon wine tasting and tour. I don't know if it's so much a tour, but a little explanation of how the wine is grown and harvested there. And then at the end of that, we will then head off now to Kingston, New York, where we're going to stay at the Best Western Plus. Lovely hotel. We've been there before. Wonderful buffet dinner. There's a salmon entree and there's a chicken salad or soup, dessert, and quite a nice hotel. Kingston's interesting because it was actually the first state capital of New York back in the time of the Revolutionary War. And George Washington and his troops, and they were all going up there. They were alternating for their meetings from Philadelphia. I'm sorry, for New York, it was there. I'm getting confused here with his time in Philadelphia since that's where we're based, that area. However, it was only settled there as the capital for about a year. In October of 1777, the British came up the Hudson and captured the city. So after that, they went then to Albany. There's a lot of history in this whole Hudson Valley, from the Dutch, the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812.
Private office too on.
Sorry, let me go ahead and, I think somebody just meant to mute themselves. So I'll just try to fix that.
So the other thing that the Hudson River, we're going to be driving up that way as far as where we stay in Kingston. That's the way the steamboat was coming up. I think they said the first steamboat ride to Albany was 33 hours until they improved that. But from there we head northwest. You picture.
Oh, I gotta rewind because I'm sorry, I apologize. I thought I was showing these slides before when you asked me, but I realized I was not showing the slide when I took it through. So just so that everybody knows, and I'll show this for about 5 more seconds, this is the overview of the Castles of New York trip, which I did not show before. And now, Kathy, we are caught up on day 2. Sorry about that.
Okay. So from where we were in Millbrook, we're heading to Albany. And Albany truly is at the foot of the Adirondacks. The Albany Capitol House is absolutely beautiful. They'll break us up probably into 2 groups. And what you're looking there is the Senate chamber. And I'm sorry, no, that's not. That's the general area, the approach to it. But the chamber, the Senate chamber, when it was dedicated, was named the most beautiful room in America. They had granite from Scotland. They had marble from Italy. It's just a very impressive, the whole building is impressive. You can see how large it is there, and they will take us there through the tour. There will be security to get into the building. And it's just, I was just there last summer. We stopped there on several trips that go north, especially the one that goes to Quebec and Montreal. And it's very informative. The tour guides are wonderful, and you'll have a chance to wander through here before we then leave there on our way to the Alexandria Bay area. So when we leave here from Albany, we'll stop for lunch and then head out to Alexandria Bay. So Alexandria Bay is actually the name of the village on the St. Lawrence River. St. Lawrence River, it's quite a long stretch, goes from Lake Ontario all the way up through Canada and probably ends up in the Atlantic around Nova Scotia. So what we just heard about this Gilded Age. So the Gilded Age was really the beginning of tourism, was the 1880s. People with a lot of wealth were beginning to travel for vacations and starting second homes. And similar to some of the mansions on Long Island are the mansions that were created in the Thousand Island area. Now, actually, there are about 1,800 islands in the Thousand Island area. The criteria is it must be 1 square foot. It must maintain 1 tree, and it must be above sea level 12 months a year. So you can see how they jump from 1,000 to 1,800. But the ones that we are visiting are not too far. This is the village that you see on the bottom, Alexandria Village. We're going to be staying at the Edgewood resort there and using that as our stopping off point. So we'll have a buffet dinner that night. The seafood buffet dinner is delicious and highly recommended. And the people who run it, I think that is also family run. And
they love us. They love Star Tours.
and they treated everybody beautifully. I've talked to the last, but we had a tour last year, and then we had a tour, I think, 2019. So we're back on and anxious to get back to that beautiful seaway, the St. Lawrence Seaway, the St. Lawrence River. We go into the village the next morning, and we will get a it's only a 10-minute shuttle or 10-minute ferry ride from Uncle Sam's boat tours over to Bolt Castle. That's the first castle we go to. The Bolt Castle was built by a man named George Bolt, came from Germany when he was about 12. Tremendously hardworking. He came, he learned the kitchens in hotels and restaurants. He owned the Bellevue Stratford in Philadelphia and then owned the Waldorf Astoria in Manhattan. So he had been coming up here to a different island, it was Wellesley Island, with his family through the 1890s, and decided that he would buy Hart Island. At that time, it was spelled H-A-R-T. He immediately changed it to H-E-A-R-T. And when we go on to the island to tour the Bolt Castle, be aware of all of the Hart motifs in his garden, in his sculpture. There will be many examples through the day that we will see exactly how he carried the theme through. He planned this for his beautiful, beautiful wife, and they had worked together in the hotel industry, and he was building it for her. And through, I think it was 1905, and I don't have the ending date here, but it took a few years. And just before it was finished, he was going to give it to her for Valentine's Day, and she died. I think she was 42 years old. They've been married 26 years, had 2 kids, a son and a daughter. So he was so heartbroken, he stopped the final. It had 5 stories, 128 buildings. I'm sorry, 128 rooms. There's a yacht house, there's a powerhouse. It just goes on and on. So he stopped it, and it went through a whole history of, well, we'll hear all about it. They'll show you a film when we visit. But it took a long time because he never went back to it. And eventually it was bought by the TI Bridge. That is the Thousand Island Bridge, which goes between Canada and the Thousand Islands. And they decided in the 1970s, they could make this into a real tourist feature. And so there's no accommodations to stay overnight here, but they have raised enough money that they've been renovating year after year and finishing a bedroom by a bedroom. So we'll have a lot to see. You can see how beautiful the rooms are that they have finished. And this is a guided tour. I'm sorry, self-guided tour. They will give us an app and an audio to listen to as we walk through. There's also a, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. In addition to, there will be people on the grounds to take us through. There are gardens to visit, and we will get a fair idea of everything. And oh, I know what I was stopped saying, but meant to say is when we get there in the library, there is a beautiful video that you can go in and get the whole history that I'm telling you, sort of in a nutshell. So when we leave there, we will take a shuttle. I call it a shuttle, but it's a ferry that comes back and forth to our building. It's Uncle Sam's Tours. And that will take us back to the village, where we will get on a Uncle Sam's boat tour of the seaway there. So that's going to be a 2.5-hour boat tour. We'll have a boxed lunch on the boat, and that will take us to Dark Island. So Dark Island, this is here, and it is Singer Castle. It is Singer Castle because Frederick Bourne, he built it, and he was the president, 6th president of Singer Sewing Machine Company, and he built it. It was always called the Towers until after he died, and the next generation, they began to call it Singer Castle. So this is, you can rent a wing of this for about $795 a night. They only rent the one wing and accommodate 6 people. But this will be a guided tour, and we will have a docent there because they will be able to show us the secret passages and underground ways to look at different things. I think in the living room, you push a panel next to the fireplace and the wall moves. And it's great for spying. They describe people who want to see who's in the living room. There's a slanted wall, and from the inside passageway, you can see through. So we'll be able to see that as well. So that is day 3 with all the castles. When we go back to the village, we have an option if you have energy left, because you're going to be touring a lot on day day 3 there. But when we go back to the village, we will drop anyone who has enough energy and wants to stay in town for about an hour and a half, explore a little bit. There's an old history museum there, and there's some restaurants there all on the water. You can do that, but the bus will be taking everyone else back to the hotel for dinner on their own at the hotel. The bus will then come back into the village to bring everyone back after they've had about an hour and a half there to have a bite or just walk around a little bit. So that's a nice thing to keep in mind as the day progresses, depending upon how you feel, what the weather looks like. So that night we will go back to the hotel, have dinner there, and the following day head home. And in that case, we're going to be coming, remember we've traveled north and then we've traveled northwest. So then leaving the Alexandria Bay area, we're going to be just going directly south, coming back through Binghamton and then down into Pennsylvania in New Jersey to get us home. So it's going to be a beautiful tour, beautiful things to see. You're on the water, you're near the water. When we're at the Edgemoor Resort, there's views of the water. And I think it always makes everything more beautiful, more photographic, or, you know, photo opportunities. It's going to be a lovely tour and lots of history thrown in. There's tremendous amount of history, especially Clayton, which is the far west side. We're not going to be exactly near there. It's about 12 miles away, but they built a lot of ships there for World War I. It was a fishing resort. I even read as early as the 1700s, they had a direct line to the New York Stock Exchange right there from that town of Clayton, because there were so many wealthy investors up there who needed to keep tabs on what their investments were doing on the New York Stock Exchange. So we'll be filling in some of those pieces for everybody that comes aboard.
It sounds awesome. It sounds awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy. Sure. Really appreciate your in-depth knowledge and you taking us through this tour.
Sure.
Does anybody have any questions for Kathy related to this tour specifically?
Yeah, the dates.
Yes, it's September. It's right after Labor Day. September.
Oh, that's right. You did show it. The 5th through the 8th?
5th to the 8th. 5th to the 8th.
Thank you.
That's exactly right. The 5th through the 8th. This is that screen that I thought I was showing that I wasn't showing. Any other questions specifically for Kathy?
We have dinner at each hotel. The first night we have dinner included.
Excellent. Let me just recap the 3 tours here. So we have Atlanta from October 29th to November 4th. The tour director is Jean Gray, and we already have 28 people booked. We don't have a lot of room, only 12 spots left on that trip because we've got about 10 people joining us from our sister tour company, Air Tours in Maryland. So again, book Atlanta soon if you want to join us. Then we have the Hamptons in Long Island. That's October 1st through 4th. Evie Simon is the tour director on that trip. We also have 28 people booked on that trip. Currently have 23 available to book. So that's more than half full. And then Castles of New York, not to be outdone, has 29 people booked with about 25 seats left. So, and that's September 5th through 8th, and Kathy Gillespie, who you just heard from, is the tour director. Does anybody have any questions? It looks like Nancy's raising her hand. Questions about any of these 3 tours or any other questions that you might think of?
This is Lisa. I just wanted to say I went on the, it was Girls Getaway to Long Island, and it was a great trip. Loved it. And awesome. Yeah, and I'm planning, I got on tonight because I'm booked for Castles of New York, so I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, this is a good night for you to join then.
Yeah, yeah.
The last time we did the Hamptons trip, we did it as a girlfriend's getaway, and it was, yeah. And a lot of men said that they wanted to go. So here we are doing it for everybody. It's okay. Hi, Jean. Jean's joining us from Chicago.
Yes, I was just going to say greetings from Chicago. And when I heard it was Atlanta, I planned to get on the tour Tuesday. However, I forgot one thing.
Time change.
We're on Central Time. So I joined in. I was ready at 20 to 7 Chicago time. So I caught the end of it, and Kathy, you were terrific. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Lucky for you, Jean, we recorded it. So
yes.
Yeah,
I just want to say the Castles of New York was a fantastic trip. I did that several years ago with you guys.
Oh,
it was
of course
amazing.
You did, Joyce. Of course you did.
Well, it's not my fault. You have great trips. I try to take them all, but it was great. So
do you remember the steps and like the walk? How were I know like Singer Castle has a lot of steps.
Yes, but you know, they were very easy to maneuver. You know, I don't think you could get like a wheelchair up them, but from what I remember, but you know, most of us, you know, and you know, most of us even then were seniors kind of, and we didn't have any problems in maneuvering our way around the castle, even though it's all kind of, I mean, the guy built it himself. So, you know, I should give you an idea how sort of rustic it is.
Okay, good. I'm glad to have that insight. So lots of steps, but if you can do steps, it's not terribly hard.
Right.
Okay, good. Any other questions or comments?
And there's a lot of wine sampling.
Sign me up.
I love that part.
I bet you do. Sheila, what would you like to tell us?
Yes, I didn't get the price on the Atlanta trip.
All right, let's go back to that screen at the very beginning, and I will share that with you. $18.99 per person based on double, and $22.49 per person based on single occupancy. And that includes 9 meals. And every hotel is a Drury hotel on that trip. So full hot breakfast. I know Jean's like, wow, wonderful hot breakfast every morning. And then of course the free kickback every night, if we're there. There's some nights that we already have dinner planned, but there's some nights that we don't. And I think if you don't use your drink coupons for one night, they carry over to the next night. Am I right, tour directors?
Actually, they yeah, as long as you have the coupon, but they are dated though, so they don't.
Oh, they don't carry over.
Yeah.
Got it. That's smart, I guess, for them. Yeah. Any other questions?
Do they have to be alcoholic drinks? Because I don't drink that much.
No.
Okay.
Not at all. No, I always get the virgin, whatever it is. So no, you don't have to get alcoholic drinks, but you don't need the coupons for the other drinks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good. Any other questions? I kept you guys over the time tonight. There was lots to talk about for these trips. So much to say. So I thank you for being patient. I'd like to especially thank Bruce and Holly. Thank you guys. And Kathy Gillespie for taking us through this trip. Thank you especially for doing this and for escorting this trip. Boy, we have some great people here at Star Tours that we work with, both on our staff and our partners, like Bruce and Holly. So we're super thankful for you. We've got Lindy on the call tonight. So Lindy is our travel advisor. So when you're ready to book your trip, you can call us. All of us will be able to help you. And before I let you go, I have to do my fun thing by giving away a $25 gift card. And your winner tonight is Christine Levine. Christine, are you still on the call? Let's see. I see you. There you are. She's still here. Yay. Well, Christine, there you are. You're on. Congratulations. Wow. You just won $25. You can spend it on any of these trips or any trip that you would like. So we'll try to call you tomorrow. And if we don't call you, you can call us to coordinate the $25 gift card.
Great.
Congratulations. Well, thank you guys so much. Our next Tour Tuesday is August 1st. That's going to be here before we know it. We're going to be talking about the Girlfriends Getaway to Newport. It's a Gilded Age trip, the Pocono Mountains trip, and Maine's Mid-Coast Booth Bay Harbor. So I hope you can join us to hear about these 3 wonderful trips. Again, thank you so much to Holly, Bruce, and Kathy for presenting. Thank you to all of you who have generously given us your time this evening to listen and hear about all these wonderful trips. And we'll see you on a trip soon. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Bye. Thank you for coming. Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah,
Thanks
okay,
again,
bye-bye.
guys. Bye.